So now that we've vetted our ideas and organized our process, what does the I in voice stand for?
Well, the I in voices stands for integrating the data, something we like to talk about in the Power Platform team. And as far as customer voice goes, it all starts in something called the Dataverse.
So, Keith, I've heard this term, the Dataverse, but I'm not sure I completely understand what it is. Could you explain it to me and to our viewers?
Absolutely. So think about the Dataverse as the database that's behind the Power Platform products, things like Power Automate and Power Apps, as well as Dynamics 365 for sales and other products in that line. So um, it is sort of the cloud database that is behind those things, and it's the tables, it's the relationships, it's the columns, it's the business rules, all of that all together.
So then what's the big benefit to the user, to me, or to one of our customers?
So yeah, especially if you're going the customer voice route, the big benefit is that because those tables are connected to the systems that you're using, they have the same data. There's no integration really required. It just is there. And then for customer voice, that data is related to contact records. So for instance, if I sent you a survey, your contact record would have a relationship to the response, which is in another table within Dataverse. So it's sort of all together in one.
So I could analyze the responses by data that's maybe in the ERP, like what industry the company is in, or maybe the kind of job position that the respondent has. And
Precisely. So it gets you to all the data that you have about that contact already or the company. And yeah, you can do things like segment it by industry. You can average out responses for everyone who's from a specific company. You can do it geographically. Say, okay, our respondents in Florida said X. Um, Anything that you have that is tied to a contact already is up for grabs for analyzing the data.
Keith, that's a really interesting point. Because if the data's there,
Mm-hmm.
I can pull it in later and I don't have to ask the question on the survey.
Right,
So I don't need to say, how long have you been a customer of ours? I can pull that in.
right,
And so I'm reducing the response burden
right.
on them to answer a question that we already know the answer to.
Yeah, yeah. So part of the I stage is also analyzing what information you have about that customer or the respondent. They don't have to be a customer,
Hmm.
but analyzing what information you have and then determining is there something that I need to ask them in the survey because I don't have it. So that's how you're sort of deciding what the gaps are in the data that you have and then what you need to ask the customer for so that you're reducing those questions that are kind of irritating, like, oh, you should probably know this. You're reducing those to a very, very minimum that works for your company.
I got you. Right. And it's really important to think about it. Is the data there
Right.
and I don't have to ask it? Or do I have to ask it in order to perform the kind of analytics I want to perform later on? Because the other piece of that is you don't want to add something to a survey that you're not going to use,
Right.
right? I mean,
Exactly.
it should only be there if it's going to factor into a use.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So as far as with a lot of our customers, one of the things they have to think about is their data somewhere else that it has to be tied into Dataverse? Because not everyone uses Dataverse as their primary source. So one of the things that a lot of our customers use is Business Central. That's sort of their main system. So one of the things you have to think about when you're thinking about customer voice and integrating the data is actually thinking about what are those outside systems like Business Central that aren't natively Dataverse, like how are they connected up? So one of the things you have to think about is, do we need to use some information from Business Central, and then how are we going to integrate that into Dataverse? It's just something that you have to think about before. You can't just kind of assume that it's going to happen in advance.
so I got you. So, when you're talking about the I in the
Mhm.
integration, what we're really saying is where is all that information going to come
Right.
from? And we're doing it in advance because there's nothing worse than sending out a survey, getting the responses back, and then going, I want to divide the data by this,
Yep.
and not having this.
Exactly.
So a really good point is to think about how that data is going to all end up in the same place. And it sounds like the Dataverse then makes it a lot easier to actually conduct the survey,
Right,
conduct
right.
the analytics on the survey later on.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because it acts as a storehouse for all your survey responses. Dataverse is very easy to pull into Power BI. That's one thing that you can do for the analysis of it. Um, and yeah, it just makes the whole process very smooth. Dataverse tables I find are actually really easy to kind of follow where they're leading. It's not quite as confusing as some other systems, like if you just had a SQL Server or something that somebody had to set up in advance. It's a very user friendly experience, and I think those who haven't tried it would like it if they get going with customer voice and they want to integrate all their data up to those responses.
Interesting. Well, thanks.
Yeah. Thanks very much for joining us. So with the integrating the data set out of the way, we talked about Dataverse and how that's related to customer voice. Next time we talk, we're going to be talking about customer voice itself and how you're going to be using that to be a part of your survey process. So I hope that you'll join us then.
Sounds good.